Well, welcome everybody to Popcorn and Possibilities and another pop-in interview. Today we have a very special guest. Now, some people would call you filmmaker, some might call you an artist, some might say a photographer. Tell me, who is Alan Govenar?
Well, I think I consider myself to be an interdisciplinary artist.
Okay.
I've had a very free-form career. I started writing books when I was 17 years old. I'm 73 now. Published 40 books. I've made a couple of dozen movies. I work in musical theater. I'm a photographer. I've done a lot of different things over the years.
Very impressive, and, we were fortunate enough to watch Tattoo Uprising and Quiet Voices in a Noisy Place, and it's just so your wide reach across the arts and the things you're passionate about come through in your work for what that's worth. We can tell very much passionate about very many things, and it was really beautiful to see that manifest itself in your work.
Well, thank you. I mean, my work there's several threads to my work. In a way, it's a tapestry that I've seen unfold over the years, but I have had long-term relationships with many of the people I've documented, and so it's ebbed and flowed in different ways. And I think when I was younger, it was a little harder managing it, but I have a lot of balance in my life, and I walk 4 to 6 miles every day. I have listened to the same music driving to my office studio and same music driving home. I mean, it's
Yeah,
different, but I have a rhythm to my life and it permeates everything that I do.
I love that. So, Alan, take us back a little bit. Like you talked a little bit about when you were younger, starting to manage some of these things. Like, when did you realize that storytelling was the path for you, be it through any of the various mediums that you employ in your career now?
As a child growing up, I liked making little books, little flip books, little
Mm.
drawings, and other objects that I just liked making. When I was 17, I started writing poetry, and my first book, which was never published, but set the stage for everything else, was a collection of poems. My first nonfiction book I started when I was 21. And once again, I don't know that I was really thinking of it as a book. I was a student at Ohio State, a junior. I was taking a folklore class. I needed to do a fieldwork project, and I wandered off campus with a friend. And it was about 11 o'clock at night, and I saw the sign in front of me that said tattooing by the teacher of the art since 1928. And I got to the front of the shop, and the sign said, as ancient as time, as modern as tomorrow. And I looked into this tattoo shop, and there was this man hunched over in a wheelchair and a basset hound howling at me as I looked in with an electric eye flashing on and off. And I think that moment, which basically merged everything that I was into at the time, literature, folklore, marginalized art forms, everything converged. And I went back the next day and met the man inside, whose name was Stony St. Clair. And I wrote my college paper, became a journal article for a small folklore magazine in Ohio. I went to graduate school in Austin and decided I really wanted to do a book about him. In the process of making the book, I got the idea to make a movie. I'd never made movies before, and I started on that journey. I started this in
Mm.
1973. The book was published in 1981. The film that I made, Stony Knows How, premiered in New York in 1981 at Film Forum. And Canby reviewed it in the New York Times. It was shown as part of the new director's series at MoMA. And the following
Wow.
spring, it launched a career for me. making this film on tattooing was very controversial at the time. It was my first National Endowment for the Arts grant that I got in 1977 or 78. And the art college where I was a teacher said that they would be the fiscal agent for the film on the condition they never received the credit in the final movie. And
That's crazy.
Yeah.
this professor that I met, Robert Plant Armstrong, was starting a PhD program, an interdisciplinary program at the University of Texas at Dallas. And he said, well, you need to get a PhD, level the playing field. And he spoke to the chancellor. I was able to pay in-state fees. At the time, I had a daughter who was about 2 years old, and I left the art college and we moved to Texas. And I ended up writing my doctoral dissertation called Issues in the Documentation of Tattooing in the Western World. And that dissertation was also controversial, even in this interdisciplinary studies graduate program. I used to joke with my friends that writing about tattooing in the university was worse than having one. And of course, now, flash forward, by the time I got my dissertation, tattooing's exploded. And tattooing, which at one time was one of the most forbidden art forms in the Western world, is now likely the most common.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
There's so many tattoo shops now. It's like when you think about how much it's changed in time. And it was in the tattoo uprising where they were talking about, it's like one of the guys in the hot tub was like, yeah, now people just kind of get whatever they want, whatever they're feeling like they want to get on that day, they just get it. And it was like back then it felt like more like an expression of yourself, and you took time and you wanted a unique piece. So it was interesting watching that and how it has changed. Like I almost kind of forgot about it just because of how big it's gotten now.
Well, it's interesting because I think as the world was growing to become more impersonal, tattoos are deeply personal. And so it makes sense. People want to individualize themselves or make it known that they're parts of different groups or clubs or their deep-seated beliefs. And they're putting these images and symbols on their body because they want to differentiate themselves. They want to be extraordinary in an ordinary world.
Yeah. So tell me, like, when you were first writing, like 17, 18, you were writing books and things of like that nature, what was your, like, what did success mean to you then in compared to like now? Has it changed in time or?
Well, for me, it's the kid in me that writes books.
Okay.
So every book I write conjures up some part of me that's all, it's discovering something that's already been there. But I approach my writing with a freshness every day. And it's not that I don't have a general idea. I understand how to craft books, both fiction and nonfiction. I write plays, I write poetry, but my understanding of these media has grown. But at the same time, the joy for me has always been in the making. So when I sit down to write, I trust the words that come out of my mouth. And it's not to say that everything I write is good, because just about everything I write goes through many, many drafts. My novel, Come Round Right, that was published in May, that I started as a poem when I was 18, probably over those 50 years went through 100 drafts.
Sure.
Most of my books go through 20 to 25 drafts or more, and I don't really keep track of it. Every draft that I write, I date in my computer. So I'm working on a new novel now. Every day it's a new date. And, I build novels and books, writing as much as I can on a particular day. So I devote myself to it. And some days maybe I write a paragraph. Some days I work on a sentence, and other days I might write 10 type pages or more. So I trust the process. In
You
Mm.
some
have to.
sense, in some sense, I'm channeling what I'm feeling. In another sense, I'm channeling what I'm discovering, because words are a constant discovery for me.
And that's the beautiful part of the creative process, right? It's ever evolving. It's not something that's static or that you can plan to a T. You need to be flexible and just kind of go with and trust the process, like you said. I think that's beautifully said.
Well, it's true. And I think that, it also involves having compassion, not only
Mm.
for others, but for yourself, for myself in the process. I'm not by any means perfect. I might write poems, and occasionally I might hit it the first time I start. But in most instances, I'll write something, I'll let it set, and then I'll come back to it. It's like I've been writing poems virtually every day now for the last several years, but they're not necessarily finished. So I've started my year this year by looking at the poems. I start my day by looking at poems I wrote a year ago. And then I work on that. Sometimes they're okay, or sometimes I put it on the resting shelf and I start something new. At the same time, I do a lot of other things. I'm very dedicated and devoted to my wife and to my family. And that's a big part of what centers me.
You let that like anybody see these drafts prior, or is it only like once the finished product is, then like will show your wife or your family or friends, whatever?
I write a lot of books
Mm.
and I'm constantly making them. So I don't expect my family to read everything that I write. That's a trap. But in terms of people reading it, I have a different circles of people depending on what I'm writing.
Mhm.
So my film editor, Jason Spinos, he brings a fresh perspective. He's a wonderful film editor. He's worked on projection design for off-Broadway shows that I've written. I enjoy working with him because he challenges me. And if I want an opinion, he'll have one. And and he's a collaborator. I'm a collaborator by nature. And
Yeah.
so, for example, with my novel, Come Round Right, there was a person I met on a trip. It was a Texas Institute of Letters trip to Cuba. And I was telling Kathy Appelt about this novel, which is about hitchhiking. And she said, well, I was a hitchhiker back in the day. And Kathy is an author of children's books and young adult books, but she wanted to read this. And over probably 6 or 7 years, she read this in 4 or 5 drafts and gave me great input. Kathy has been a finalist for the National Book Award 4 times. And so she was a hard critic. I mean, I had been working on this book for years, and I sent it to Kathy because she wanted to see it. And she emailed me back this very thoughtful, many page response. But the beginning of it was, your novel can be powerful,
Mm.
but it doesn't start until page 89. Get rid of the first 88 pages.
Wow.
Oh my god.
And she was right,
Mm.
so she was someone I trusted to give me an honest response.
Alan, you've talked about all of these amazing different facets of your career, of your passions. Is there one of these mediums that feels most home to you, be it theater, be it written word, poetry, filmmaking, photography? Any of them mean home to you or feel the most comfortable to you?
They all do, in different shapes and forms.
Okay.
For me, I work in different media because of the nature of the subjects. It's the subject that guides me into thinking what it is that I'm experiencing. Sometimes that's most expressed in a single image, a photograph. Sometimes it becomes a poem, sometimes it becomes a movie, and sometimes it just evolves. My show,
Sure.
Texas in Paris, uh, is in part based on a children's book of mine called Osceola Memories of a Sharecropper's Daughter. It was published by Hyperion Disney in 2000, and it was my first children's book.
What I'm curious about is like when you're coming up with all these topics and you're writing, with all the changes that are going on in today's technology, be it social media, AI, and all of that, has like your approach had to change in any way? And do you kind of view AI as a tool or a challenge for you?
Well, with regard to AI, I'm amazed at
Hmm.
what turns up through AI. I mean, I've written a lot of things, I've made a lot of things over the years, and it's amazing how AI distills it into a message. And it's an algorithm for gathering information and putting things in perspective. And to a larger extent than I would have ever thought, I think it works. But at
Hmm.
the same time, as a maker, as someone who's constantly making things, I feel like part of the impetus, and maybe it's the kid in me that wants to say one step ahead of AI.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
AI is after the fact. It distills what's already out there, and maybe it can create something new, but it can't create me because if I'm in the process of making it.
Right.
True.
Right.
That's a good point. I like that.
And so, yes, AI I think is important, but in a bigger sense, I mean, I think that yes, I started making movies on motion picture film. Now I make them on my cell phone. I
Right.
mean, the
Right.
film, the film that we talked about briefly that you said, Tattoo Uprising. Part of
Yes.
that was the kind of the history of my filmmaking, since it was started with motion picture film, ended up with cell phone videos that I did, and similarly, this movie, uh, Quiet Voices in a Noisy World, The Struggle for Change in Jasper, Texas, similarly is a mix of different kinds of footage.
Mm.
And for me, more than I mean, my iPhone is an incredible tool for me.
Sure.
And particularly in filmmaking, because I could
Mm.
set my iPhone to 24 frames per second, 4K video. And if you understand the limitations of what it can do, because there are a lot of things you can't do with an iPhone, that you can make movies.
Have you found that understanding and that kind of evolution with technological advancements, the way you're sharing your media, to be pivotal in having this wonderful artistic career that spans decades and years? And do you think that evolution is a big part of being able to have that sustainability?
Well, I think that having access to more tools like smartphone cameras, like other kind of digital technologies, access to the web, access to social media, it quickens the process. And so for me, I'm able to do more. I mean, I started writing books where my research was done in research libraries. And writing books about tattooing was difficult to do because there wasn't a lot in research libraries about it. And
Mm.
if anything, a lot of what was written and published was very culturally biased.
Mm.
The internet became a tool. It's a
Yeah.
valuable tool. It makes it possible to do research in countless ways. One of the things that Documentary Arts has done is to launch, a few years ago, a online magazine called truthinphotography.org. And it's grown quickly. It was something we developed in association with Aperture, with Magnum Photos, and the International Center of Photography. And it became international quickly, this online magazine. I mean, we don't have that many posts. We have less than probably 100 posts, but
Mm.
we have, you know, over 12,000 followers. And we publish this, every 6 months, sometimes sooner. but it's an online magazine that publishes the work of everyone from high school photographers to some of the most famous Magnum photographers.
Do you ever feel like, I'm sure you have days where you're like feeling burnout or maybe some doubt, or you're feeling writer's block? What do you, how do you get around that?
I never have writer's block.
Never.
Never have creativity blocks because I always find something to do. The hardest part is obviously maintaining life, the day-to-day things, repairs.
Right,
I'm in
right.
a building that was built 100 years ago, and
Mm.
the need for uh, just general maintenance. There's family issues. I'm now a grandfather. I have 4 grandkids, and so all of that takes varying amounts of time. I mean, the hardest part is just the life maintenance issues.
Mm.
The other part is my mind is, I think, more creatively active than it's ever been. But I'm aging. And I had major pancreatic surgery in 2019. So for me, I'm grateful every day to be able to do what I do. Sometimes I have to struggle more to find the time to do the creative work. So I try to make a little time every day because otherwise, at the end of the day, it doesn't feel complete.
Yeah.
So, for any of our listeners, Alan, who might be out there and maybe they're trying to kickstart their creative endeavors, or maybe they're in an uncertain patch within their creative pursuits, what would you want them to know? What advice would you give them?
My advice is pursue your passion, what you deeply believe in, and don't give up on that. It's tough. I mean, it's tough starting out. I mean, I've had lots of false starts in my life. And it's not to say, well, I don't feel writer's block. I have a lot of unpublished work. I mean, not everything I make is good. Not everything reaches even, the standards I would like to achieve. But it's just having faith that you can do it, having faith in your creator, however you define that, and having faith in a better world being possible. It's very hard these days, and I can't imagine what it's like for people, like you say, who are just starting out because it's tough. There's so many roadblocks, so many obstacles, and it's got to be terribly discouraging. Additionally, if you work in the arts, there are diminishing opportunities for people
Yeah.
to make a living. I mean, for me, when I was writing my first books, I was working part-time in a bookstore. I used to do a lot of journalism. I wrote about sports. I wrote about anything that anyone would let me write about and pay me something. And then I figured out that if I wrote travel articles, at least I could travel. I might not get paid much. So my advice is believe in what you're doing and don't give up.
I love that.
It is tough because it's like back then it was like hard to get it out to to more people, to spread like your book or your film or whatever. But now it's like you can easily put something on YouTube where millions of people can see, but it's like it's so oversaturated that it's
Yeah.
hard to like get your like punch your own hole or whatever.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's hard. You can put your work out there, but it doesn't mean that people are going to pay attention to it.
Right.
Right.
And
Right.
Right.
that's the dilemma
Mhm.
because there's more media opportunities than ever. But at the same time, gaining traction for what you do is very difficult. In some ways, it's more difficult. But part of having faith in what you're doing, I mean, much of my life and career has been getting my work into, I joke with people, lesser known places everywhere.
Well, I think the other really important piece about your advice is do something you feel deeply and passionately about. Because if you're doing it for your own love of the craft and your own passion in whatever it is you're looking to pursue, at least you have that to keep you going when it feels like maybe you're not getting the traction you want or you expect.
Exactly. Because if the focus needs to be upon the making,
Right.
because that's really where we get the greatest satisfaction. If you're looking for the way people respond, it's not to say I don't pay attention to it, but at
Mm,
the same time, if I focus on that, I'm inevitably going to be disappointed. I mean, the media response to what you do can range from nothing to being misunderstood to getting acclaim. Sometimes
mm,
it just happens. It's like mentioning, my film on Stony. Stony Knows How. Vincent Canby reviewed it in the New York Times. He was the A-list film reviewer, and he wrote a paragraph. It wasn't like he wrote pages about me and my movie. But at the same time, it created a kind of critical base. I didn't ask for it. It happened. And so it's harder. It's harder. The New York Times used to film review just about everything that premiered in New York City. It doesn't happen anymore. I mean, the
Yeah.
paper's skinnier and smaller. People's faith in newspaper journalism is less. Everything's online, everything's social media. And it's difficult to decipher what's real and what's not. So
yeah,
the
a
more
new
you
added
stray
factor.
from yourself, the more likely you are to get lost.
Well, Alan, we appreciate all of the insight into yourself and all of the wisdom you've imparted on all of us today. We always like to ask everyone who, you know, joins us for one of these chats. For everybody out there, do you have a movie recommendation or a guilty pleasure or favorite movie that you'd like to share with us?
uh, that's very difficult to say. I
You
mean,
just like to kick
there
back
are
and watch The
different
Simpsons or
movies
something?
that had impact on me in different ways at different times. When I was a kid, I loved the Gary Cooper movie, Sergeant York. I loved the idea of the nonviolent soldier who, I don't know if you know this movie, but it was released in 1941. And it was about a guy from Tennessee who was going to be a conscientious objector. He goes to war and he's a country guy and he knows all kinds of bird calls. And he figures out a way to capture a German regiment with virtually killing no one.
Wow.
And so for me, that had a big impact. I
Mm,
believe in underdogs. And so I have a range of movies that I like. And in terms of commercial movies in the last year, I really love the movie Sinners because
mm,
music,
Great one.
that was a great one.
it's so much in tune with work that I've worked in Africa. I've recorded African music and African instruments. And I mean, and I've written a lot about blues and jazz. I have many books about different aspects of that cultural expression. And so for me, that was so it's wild, but it's thoughtful.
We also thank you for taking the time out today to come talk to us.
Well, I'm glad we could make it work. I know we've tried a couple
Mhm.
of occasions, so this
Yes.
is great.
So we're gonna wrap up here. We like to wrap up with our catchphrase of keep your popcorn popping.
And your possibilities endless.
We'll see you next time.
See
Thanks,
you
Alan.
next time.